telephone conference call. I will now call the roll. Scott Kruger is present. Rhonda Robb.
Present.
Bonnie Simpson.
Present.
Sean Rochette.
Present.
Dr. Eric Lamb.
Present.
Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record. Board members are asked not to use the chat feature during meetings. Public members wishing to speak must first sign in on the roster sheet available. For public members calling in on the public phone line, please email April Fleming at april.fleming@dhsoha.state.or.us and provide your first and last name. Public and interested parties' feedback may be heard during the public interest parties' feedback period if indicated on the agenda. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. This meeting is called to order.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Scott, and again for all of your patience. So the first thing on the agenda is we need a motion, a second, and a roll call to accept today's agenda that was included in your packet.
Somebody make a motion to approve today's meeting agenda, please.
This is Rob. I make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Can I have a second?
Simpson. I second the motion to approve the agenda.
A motion has been made. I'll call the roll. Scott Kruger, aye. Rhonda Robb.
Aye.
Bonnie Simpson.
Aye.
Sean Rochette.
Aye.
Dr. Eric Lamb.
Aye.
Looks like we're good.
Excellent. So motion carries. Thank you guys all so much. So the next thing on the agenda is introductions, because we have two new board members. We have Sean Rochette and Dr. Eric Lamb. So Sean, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, and so the last name's pronounced Rochette, just to clarify.
Okay.
Rochette. Oh, thank you.
Yep. I thought I was wrong.
I get it both ways, so it's fine. Sean Rochette. I am a wastewater specialist, also a certified professional soil scientist, and I have been in public health and on-site wastewater for about 12 and a half years now, with the Department of Environmental Quality here in Oregon for 7.5 of those years. So it's good to be here.
Wonderful. Welcome. And Dr. Eric Lamb, who said he doesn't mind being called Eric, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Eric Lamb, family medicine doc in Baker. I've been county health officer for about 5 years. Been county medical examiner for about 2 years and deputy medical examiner for about 20 or 18 years. And I'm brand new to this committee.
Welcome. Well, we could go around the board, and you guys all know each other, but Scott, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Sure. I'm Scott Kruger, and I work at Benton County Environmental Health in Corvallis, and I'm acting in capacity as the environmental health manager currently. Yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Rhonda?
Good morning. Sorry, I had to turn on my microphone. Good morning. My name is Rhonda Robb. I am one of the environmental health supervisors with Multnomah County Health Department, overseeing the inspections program. I've been in this role as a supervisor for about 1.5 years now. Prior to that, I was the plans examiner for food trucks for our county. I've been in public health, I think, for close to 20 years in some capacity. With Multnomah County, I've been here for nearly 11 years. Prior to that, I was in Deschutes County for a couple years. And there you go. Nice to meet y'all. See your faces.
Thank you so much. Bonnie, can you tell us about yourself?
Sure. I'm Bonnie, and I'm an environmental health specialist in Jackson County, and I've been with Jackson County for 11 years, and I am embedded on the communicable diseases team. So I do more of the outbreak stuff than inspections anymore. But prior to that, I did inspections. I've been environmental health specialist for over 20 years, and I've seen it all. So, as has everybody else on this board, probably.
Fantastic. In staff, again, I'm Ann Thompson. I'm your policy analyst for this board. We have many, many boards and programs here at the Health Licensing Office, and we have 2 policy analysts that split them. And you're one of mine, and I've been here for almost 9 years. And we have Trampus. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Trampus Shuck. I'm the interim regulatory manager. A lot of you may have been more familiar with Robert Bothwell, Bob, in this role, but I think they're going to, maybe Ann's going to talk about it later. But Sylvie left the office to pursue other opportunities out of state, and Bob was promoted to interim director, and because of him leaving this position, I was promoted to interim regulatory manager. So it's good to be here. Good to say hello to everybody.
Fantastic. And April does not have a microphone in the back. April Fleming is our board specialist. You've gotten communications from her, and you will. Make sure you put her in your safe email so that her emails don't go to junk, because she's the one that's going to be contacting you with materials and quorum, and is your contact, as I am, if you have any questions. On the call, we have Tina Russell, who is our licensing manager. Tina, would you like to say hi?
Good morning. Sorry, my name's Tina Russell. I'm the licensing manager. I've been here in different positions for 26 years. Been a manager for the last 6 or 7 years. Welcome, everybody.
And Tina, we have a new qualifications specialist that's going to be working with EHRB applicants. Would you like to tell the board about her?
Yes, I was hoping she was in there, Ann.
She is, but she doesn't have a microphone, and we're having audio problems.
Okay. Okay. Her name is Dee Humphreys. She joined us a couple of months ago, and Derek Foltz is training her. And so be patient until she learns her position. And that's about it.
Thank you so much, Tina. And everyone's being very, very accommodating with our microphone issues today.
Yes.
So, okay, thank you. So the next thing, if anyone doesn't have any questions, the next thing on the agenda is choosing the 2 2023 meetings that will be what we call full meetings, with reports and the fiscal, the statistics, and all that stuff. So the 2 meetings, we like to keep things as close to as they are to what we have this year that the calendar allows. So the 2 proposed meetings that we have are March 3rd and September 29. If everyone could check their calendars and make sure there's no conflicts. If everybody gives us, the go sign, then what we will need is a motion, a second, and a roll call to accept the proposed dates.
Does anybody have any conflicts on those? Kind of hard to know a year in advance.
It's all right. Checking.
We tried to look for any possible, well, the last 2 years were not typical in any way, but we try to look for any conference conflicts, any big stuff. We try not to schedule meetings around the holidays or in any, hot travel weeks. And this seems to be a comfortable couple of offerings. If nobody has any conflicts, again, we like to create the day of the week the same so that, there's some continuity. We need a motion, a second, and a roll call to accept the proposed dates.
Can I hear a motion to approve the proposed 2023 Environmental Health Registration Board meeting dates? And those dates are Friday, March 3rd at 9 a.m. and Friday, September 29th at 9 a.m.
Simpson, I motion to approve the dates as proposed.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah, this is Rob. I motion to second the proposed dates.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll call the roll. Scott Kruger, aye. Rhonda Robb,
Aye.
Bonnie Simpson,
Aye.
Sean Rochette,
Aye.
and Eric Lamb.
Aye.
Excellent. So the next thing on the agenda is the chair and the vice chair for 2023. Scott has served as chair and done a fabulous job. And Bonnie has been there if he was unable to serve in his capacity for 2022. So the board needs to nominate a chair and vice for 2023. Now, I have in front of me our board membership status. And even though Scott is at the end of his second full term, he is active through 12/31 of, 6/30 of 26. And our vice, Bonnie, you can reappoint if you like. And you are active or you are good through 6/14/2023. So if you're planning, and we're not putting any pressure on anybody, if you're planning on reappointing Bonnie, you could continue to serve as vice. We don't have to make any changes. So sometimes the chair is just done. Sometimes their period of board membership will end before the end of next year. So it wouldn't make sense for them to be the chair when they're going to be leaving us in a short period of time. But your current chair and vice chair can continue if they like, but no pressure. If you are wanting somebody else, if somebody is really excited about doing this, your job as a chair is to obviously call roll, make sure protocol is followed, and if we have any policy or budget concerns or whatever, somebody who would be our contact person. So what do you guys think?
I mean, I don't mind continuing on if that's what people choose. It's pretty easy task. So, but if somebody else wants to sit in, that's fine too. And you said I just got approved for my second term on, somewhere in July, and you said, I thought it was 5 years, but am I mistaken?
What I have in front of me is your term expiration will be in June of 2026.
Oh, right. Yeah, perfect. Yep.
And yeah, so you've got some time, and Bonnie, sometimes your first term is like a partial. So we have a partial first. You can reappoint Bonnie if you choose, and your current term will expire in June of 2023, next year. So no pressure. We're not, if you're planning on reappointing, that wouldn't be an issue. If you're not sure at this time, or you're just not really comfortable being the vice, that's fine. We can ask if somebody else would like to do that. But again, no pressure, whatever you would like, Bonnie.
Well, I'm planning on reappointing. I'm fine being the vice. Unless somebody else really, really wants to do it, then I'm looking at Rhonda. She doesn't look too excited, but
I'm good with you two continuing on.
Okay, Sean, Eric, any issues?
No issues.
Okay.
No issues.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. So if we're comfortable keeping what we have, what we will need is a motion and a second to retain Scott as chair and Bonnie as vice chair for 2023. And if you like, you can just say so moved, a second, and a roll call, please.
This is Rob, so moved. And I call for a second.
This is Rochette. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Sean. So we need a roll call, please.
Scott Kruger, aye. Rhonda Robb,
Aye.
Bonnie Simpson,
aye.
Sean Rochette,
Aye.
Eric Lamb.
Aye.
Fabulous. Okay, so moving right along, we're on the director's report. As Trampus previously mentioned, we've had some office changes. Our director, Sylvie Donaldson, has moved on to a new life in Arizona. And so our previously acting regulatory manager, Bob Bothwell, has been appointed interim director. He's not here today. Trampus has been elevated to the acting regulatory manager. So it's kind of one of those, a person goes out and other people shift into new positions. So I am tentatively trying to run through this meeting in Bob's stead. So the other changes we have at the office, in addition to some staffing changes, are we have a new program that's coming on from the 2022 legislative sessions called Temporary Staffing Agencies. And this is a real new thing for us. We have a lot of experience licensing individuals in their professional capacity. But this bill gave us a license for companies, these temporary staffing licensing companies who provide registered nurses, CNAs to hospitals, long-term care facilities, and other medical capacities. Not all of them are based in Oregon. Very few of them are. Some of them don't even have brick and mortar. They're these sort of almost talent agencies. And so it's a really interesting lift. And we will begin issuing licenses on July 1, 2023, which it sounds a long way away until you have to do rules and things like that. And so the office is going to be working on that. And that's kind of the new thing. Any questions?
That's interesting. So you're basically licensing temp agencies that supply medical staff for long-term care facilities and other types of medical facilities.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we've never done entities before, so.
Interesting. And does that cover like much of the online Ask a Nurse kind of operations as well? Like you have lots of online medical advice to reach out to a qualified medical staff?
That's an interesting question. No, as I understand it, this came about. There are chronic nurse shortages in hospitals, and obviously COVID made it worse. An aging population, the demand, educational bottlenecks have created chronic nursing shortages, not just in Oregon, but around the country. And of course, they have to have staffing ratios. In addition, long-term care facilities, nursing homes, and residential care facilities have staffing ratios of patient to caregivers that they have to maintain, many of them to maintain their Medicaid funding. Well, when staff leaves and there's burnout or somebody's out on maternity leave, hospitals have done this for a long time. Hospitals that are in resort communities and there's a holiday coming up and they know everyone's going to blow themselves up with fireworks or get skiing injuries, they might bring on nurses onto staff for a set period of time, a weekend, 6 months. Nurses travel. Sometimes they want to get out of Chicago for 6 months in the wintertime. So they'll take a 6-month stint down in Texas or someplace in California. Well, a lot of nursing care facilities and long-term care facilities really struggled during COVID to maintain staffing ratios because of burnout and companies like Target and Walmart raising their wages. And so some of these direct caregivers chose to leave the profession and created these huge gaps. So these companies, these staffing agencies, have sort of moved into that gap. And if you need a CNA for a certain period of time, you can contract for a day, a week, 6 months with these temporary staff. They're like kind of freestanding talent agencies almost, and you can contact them. Hospitals have done this for a long time to fill expected gaps and shortages, flu season, things like that. But COVID really put a lot of strain on long-term care facilities who just couldn't maintain the staff to take care of people. So they went to the legislators and they said, listen, our clients are on a fixed income. We've got folks that are charging what they said were outrageous rates. They said, hey, it's supply and demand. And so this license came about, and the interesting part of it is there's a section 15 of the bill, that a company is tasked with establishing policies and procedures around rate capping. Maximum rates that can be charged based on prevailing wages, and that changes from Multnomah to obviously Harney County. There's going to be different prevailing wages. And so a company, Mercer, has been contracted to do a huge prevailing wage study and provide that information to the legislation at the end of this year. And it's to, policies and advice on the establishment of rate caps. And obviously this is a very, very hot issue and developed there was a lot of opposition to it at the legislative level, because nurses were like, don't tell me how much I can make when I'm going in a COVID ward and I may not come out, and so there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of push pull on it. And here we are establishing licenses on companies that may be incorporated in another state. They may not have brick and mortar. They're just sort of freestanding. I mean, it's amazing now. They don't even have phone numbers. They have an email where it says, I'm interested in services or other, and you prove you're not a robot, just like a CAPTCHA, and you send that information into the ether, and they may respond or they may not. So it's just a really interesting business that I've been learning about, and finding these companies is also really interesting and difficult. And so anyway, that's what we're working on. It's going to be an interesting next few months. Did that give you what you needed, Scott?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I'm assuming that's going to come at some point with its own board too.
No, they didn't give us a board. It's just a program.
Okay.
And usually we get a program, like we have several programs, well, 5 or 6 of them now. We have genetic counselors, we have music therapists, art therapists. And generally, when you have a program, and again, this is so unusual because when you have a group of people who want a license because they want insurance reimbursement or they want professional recognition, they make themselves known. Their associations come forward and say, we would like a license. And based on the number of people and the risk of the profession and some other factors, including do they have a very strong national certification? We got lactation consultants who help new mothers with breastfeeding, and they have an international certification. And they have to meet very, very high credentials. And the legislation sometimes will look at that and say, okay, you have very, very strong credentials, and it's a relatively low risk profession as risk is assessed. And they say, okay, you don't need to pay for a board. You don't need to pay for the expenses of that. There's not a lot of things that are going to have to be decided. So they say, okay, we'll just make you a program. So you don't have regular meetings. Your licenses are more affordable. We get subject matter experts and rules advisory committees to help us with rules and cases. And so far, no issues. So it's really, what's interesting about that is you have people living in the state, or if you have a board, you guys all live in the state, you have a vested interest in the state. It would be very difficult to create a board out of people that aren't here. Where are they? Are they operating out of Florida? Are they operating out of Delaware, or I don't know, Panama? I mean, these companies are freestanding. And so they didn't give us a board. We have a program, and it's made even locating these companies has been something of a challenge. And every state that has a license for this particular profession has found the challenges to be similar. So, we just call it a dare to be great situation, and we do what we can. So we'll see what the report comes back on prevailing wages, because a lot of the companies that I spoke with the association, and they said, well, if the wages are not worth sending people here, they might not. So it's, we don't know what's going to.
This is Kruger. You have enough FTE to support an additional. I'm kind of an additional item that you have to oversee.
Again, you're the star question asker today. Yeah, we were given some full-time employees. But again, the challenge has been, the way our model works is we price a license based on the number of people that are going to need it, and the services that that profession is going to require. Do we have to write an exam for it? Do we have to give an exam? Do we have to do inspections? And we'll get to that when we get to the finances, the cost allocation. So they have these matrices. And they say, okay, based on the services that they're going to be required and the number of people, then they price it out and they say you're going to need X number of full-time employees, or you're going to need another investigator, or you're going to need another inspector. They've apparently they've budgeted for a few FTEs, but as we don't know how many of these businesses not only are out there, but who might choose to come here, pricing this program has been an enormous challenge because we just don't have a lot of data points right now. And that's something that the fiscal experts in the Oregon Health Authority are kind of scratching their heads and say, because, once you establish a fee, we've done it for you guys. You can give a discount. We say, okay, your revenues and your expenditures, you're bringing in too much money. You've got a cushion. We can give you a discount. It's easy to give a discount. We can just do that in rule. But raising rates requires you to go back to the legislation. So now it's a question of, well, how do we price something with no data points? And how do we make sure that our full-time people that are coming in to handle this, their expenses are paid? And, so it's just been a really interesting learning experience.
Thank you.
This is Eric Lamb. So if I understand this correctly, all these professionals already have to have an Oregon license, regardless of where they're coming from. This new task assigned by the legislature is really for wages and rates analysis and managing these companies providing temporary employees.
Yes, and I want to make sure I understand your question completely. The professionals who are working for these agencies are already licensed. The temporary agencies make sure that they have appropriate licensure. We would be licensing the business itself. And they are registered with the Secretary of State. Like, when you go and you do an LLC, it's like Underwater Basket Weaving LLC and the responsible parties. But you don't have to tell the Secretary of State what you do. What services are you providing? It's just a name, a responsible party, and that's it. We would be actually issuing a license to the companies that provide temporary staff to facilities. And we would be, according to the statute that came out, well, it was a bill, now it's going to be codified into a statute. We would have to get information on the board of directors. We would have to get fingerprints on them every other year, I believe. Any pertinent business-related documents. Again, something very different for us. Does that answer your question?
It does. I was just not quite sure what the legislature had in mind to create this.
Well, I can't. Was somebody had a statement? Thought I heard somebody. Well, ours is not to question why. We're the executive branch. We do what we were told, but from legislative history and from testimony, and again, we are neutral on all legislation. But what I have gathered is that during COVID, it made existing staffing issues even worse. And hospitals are very familiar with this resource pool, very familiar with getting folks on a temporary basis. They have established relationships with some of these companies and they're very comfortable with it. Well, COVID drove long-term care and nursing care facilities into this ecosystem. And they didn't have relationships. They didn't understand, and I'm getting this from just testimony, how it works. All they know is that they have to bring in an RN who was being trained by someone who made a third of what they made. Now, some of these staffing companies also are paying, employment taxes and all that. But when you have somebody come in and you're paying hotel, you're paying per diem, And they just look at the bottom line and they thought that they were being overcharged. And so they went to the legislators and said, essentially, we're being gouged. And some states have actually added these agencies to their gouging statutes. And that's how they're handling it. They're saying, okay, if we feel like we are being overcharged, then the attorney general will look into it, do an investigation. But a lot of other states are struggling with how do we, especially long-term care facilities where the clients are on a fixed income. And what do we do when we're required to have staffing ratios and the only way to fill the gaps are to pay fees that to them seemed exorbitant? So it's just kind of a new business model that everyone's trying to get a handle on. And of course, from the temporary staffing agencies, their argument is, hey, it's supply and demand. If you need somebody and we're sending them out and away from their family and you can't get anybody else, well, you might have to pay more than you think is reasonable. But again, that's economics, right? And so it's just everybody has very strong opinions in this arena. I can tell you that.
All right, thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? Wow, this that was like the longest conversation I've gotten to have on this, and it's fantastic that you asked such great questions. It's terrific. So with that being said, we're going to go to something a little more data-based and a little less exciting. No, we have licensing and fiscal statistical reports. I hope everybody had a chance to look over these. Slide 14 of 24, we have your licenses issued. Now, I have to say this every time, fiscal year for the state is not like fiscal year for anybody else. Our fiscal year runs from June to July of the following year, which is why we have a fiscal year 23 when 2023 hasn't gotten here yet. But that's how the state operates. So you can see at the bottom, you'll have the dates that match fiscal year 21 is 7/1/20 through 6/30/21. And during that time in fiscal year 21, you had 34 licenses issued. And you can see the split between environmental health specialists and trainees. And, your numbers are pretty steady. So if we go to the next one, you see environmental health specialist renewals. Blue is online, orange is paper. And we love it when folks renew online because it is very, very fast for the office and less paper, less trees dead. And it's just convenient and easy for everybody. And what's nice is I do believe we put a discount into place for you guys in earlier this year for folks who renew online. So you get to save some money and you save the office some time and everyone's happy. Wastewater specialist renewals, of course, it's a rarefied group. As Sean and I were talking about earlier, we don't have too many of them. But again, you can see the majority renew online. Age and gender, you have a nice little pyramid here. You have a few people that are coming in at 18 to 25. Again, you have a rigorous certification process to become an environmental health specialist or a wastewater specialist. So you can see the ages are a little bit older. And then you have folks that are, but you still have somebody who has an active license. We don't know if they're practicing in the 74, we have 6 in the 74 to 81 age group. So that's pretty great. Any questions?
This is Kruger. Could you please repeat what the discount is for this year coming for people renewing online?
Let me look that up for you.
I wanted to say it was like $50.
Yeah. That was my fault. I put it in the director's report and then I forgot to mention it. Okay. So you have a $50 online renewal discount that went into effect March 1st of 2022.
Right.
So most of this year, folks who renew online do get a $50 discount, which is great. Again, it's very easy for us to give a discount. Raising rates is very difficult to do. So when we get to the fiscal, we'll show you how we want things to balance out. So licenses by age and gender, again, it's more males than females. And we don't require you to tell us what you are. And so that's why you see some gray, you have some others. Wastewater specialists, you know, again, it looks kind of almost even, but all 9 of you, one of whom is with us today. Licensing trends, as you can see, super steady. I mean, at the beginning of first quarter, fiscal year 21, you have 247, and this is an average. You know, we just pull an average, and now you're at 250. So you're, I mean, this is straight, and wastewater specialists too. At least it's not declining, right? So we can get to the money part of it. We have fiscal year 2018 through 2023 represented. And you see your cash balances. Our goal is to keep your revenues and expenditures about the same. And, you know, you want to have a cushion in case you have a case, because if you have a case, go to hearing, this money will disappear so fast. You wouldn't even believe it. So we want to make sure that your board has a nice cushion. But with that said, if you can notice, back in 2018, 2019, you were bringing in more money. 2020, you were a little bit more equal, but you were bringing in more money than you were really spending because your profession is steady. You don't have a lot of cases. You don't have a lot of contentious rule writing that requires DOJ fees. So we put this discount into effect, and we're hoping that that will help balance your revenues and keep your expenditures as close to equal as possible. At the bottom, and this will be new for Sean and Eric, we have what are called pooled expenditures. And that's a nice way of saying we keep all the boards separate. Nobody, you know, it's not like everybody's money is in a giant pot and then we just dip it out with a ladle. Everybody's money is kept separate, and your board pays a percentage of the what are called shared services, like my salary, rent, internet, customer service people, you know, what it takes to run the office. Your board pays a percentage based on the number of licensees you have and the services you require. If you have testing, you pay for a portion of the staff and the things associated with testing. If you have inspections, you pay for a portion of inspections. If you see in the red, it says small board. We have 3 staff that are dedicated to working on small boards, and that's pretty much anyone other than cosmetology that has, you know, tens and tens of thousands of licensees. So you only pay for the services you use, and the percentage is based on the number of licensees you have. So, and we have cost allocations. We also have shared services that we have to pay Oregon Health Authority because we're part of them now in public health. So we have to pay for payroll and HR and all the oversight pieces. So there's direct costs like rent and me, and then there's indirect costs that kind of, you know, the overall structure. So you can see the percentages of what your board pays for those things. Any questions?
This is Kruger. I just
Mhm.
have one question with regards to the discount.
Yes.
It looks like you're projecting out that we're looking at a, you know, pretty close to balancing out. But so how long would you, or how long is it projected that the discount for online renewals would last? Just this fiscal year, or is it budgeted to continue for a while until we get to a more balanced incoming revenue and outgoing revenue?
Great question. First of all, the 2023 that you see is actually in effect because, again, we have those strange state years, right? So it's July of 22 to current, and we are a little closer. So that's actual. That's not projected. As long as we will keep, there is no end to that discount. There is no date. See, when you want to end something in rule, because that is where your fees are and that's where your discount is, you have to, if you want to end something, you have to put it in rule. You can't just say, well, we'll just end this tomorrow. So when we give a discount, what we do is look at how's your money been, and fiscal experts do a projection. How are expenses going? How are licenses going? Do you have any big, you know, they kind of look at the whole picture, both in the rearview mirror and they project forward. And based on that, they give us the $50 discount, assuming that that should be sustainable for the foreseeable future. Now, if something happens, someone opens up your statutes and takes half of your licensees away, or somehow there's some huge case that goes through that just, drains that finances right to the ground, then we might have to look at it and say, okay, is this sustainable? But we don't put something like that in place unless it is understood that unless something catastrophic happens or dramatic happens, that is sustainable for the foreseeable future.
That's great. Thank you.
Of course, of course. And again, we don't do that. We don't like to jerk people around, right? So if we offer a discount, it's because you've shown over a decent amount of time that you can sustain your cushion. We look at your cases, we look at your license base, we look at any issues. And if it's not a volatile situation, we'll offer something confident that it will hold. Now, we've had times where with other boards where they continue to bring in money on top of that. And so then we, if there's an exam and someone needs to take a second exam, we've offered second exams, retakes at no cost. There's other things that we can do to ease the burden on the licensees and also make sure that your money's where it needs to be. Because we're not like the bank of HLO, right? We don't want to have this huge amount of money when it could, there's no reason. You guys are covered. Let's see if we can offer discounts in other areas. So great question again, Scott. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, with that being said, we're going to stop the and show for a little bit, and I'm going to hand over the regulatory report to Trampus.
Hello, everyone. So I probably won't take up too much time. It's pretty straightforward. Looks like we only have one case that is still currently open at this time. It's a little bit older case, but I suspect that will have a resolve very soon, actually. So it was just reassigned. It was in a little bit of a limbo state for a bit, and now it's just been reassigned. So I think that will get resolved sometime soon, probably by the next meeting, I would guess, if not the next. So we haven't got a lot of cases in. We've gotten 5 over this last biennium, and they're all 5 closed. So mostly they are actually licensing issues, but we do occasionally have something about a safety, sanitation, or services provided coded under that. So, anybody have any questions about this?
Yeah, this is Kruger. I just want to know of this open case that you have. Do we foresee that going to some special session for compliance and input from the board, or do you feel like that's going to be resolved internally and not need us to convene?
I don't know if we would convene a special board for it or not. Just depends on it, the timing of it getting closed. If we're kind of coming near a board meeting and it would need to have a board review, then we would just bring it to the next board meeting. Otherwise, if it was, we might call a special meeting. It is a situation where, it's a relatively straightforward situation. I can't really talk too much about the details about it in open
Right.
session, but so it'll either be something that would be unsubstantiated and may not have to even come to the board, or it may be something that there needs a decision made on it. So,
Thank you.
all right, if there's no other questions, we can move on to the next agenda item. Is
Okay,
public
thank you,
interested
Trampus.
parties.
Yeah, so let me see, do we have any? Okay, this is Ann Thompson at Health Licensing. Do we have anyone on the phone? We do not have anybody, so we don't have to address item 6, the public interested parties feedback. And thus that takes us to item number 7, which is other board business. Is there anything that the board would like me to prepare or anything that you would like to talk about at your next board meeting?
Yeah, this is Kruger. I've got a couple of items for you, please.
Okay, fire away.
Number one, environmental health managers across the state are reaching out to me, unfortunately, because they recognize me as the board chair, and I certainly have to explain to them that I'm sequestered here. I'm not allowed to act or speak on behalf of the board. But there are lots of questions about trainees coming on board and their the classes that they need to be approved. And the second one is for the Oregon Environmental Health Association conference and approval of their CEUs. This is these two topics are high on environmental health managers' radar across the state.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. Your first issue, EH managers reaching out. Now, please always send them to us. We're happy to help.
Right.
What is it that they're concerned about? Because maybe that's something we could talk about kind of.
It's coming back full circle as to what is. We have had this conversation in this board at least 2 to 3 times that I can remember, is what classes are actually approved and not approved to get a trainee's licensed, approved, and moving forward. We're not unlike any other profession that's struggling to get new people on board, and their managers are having a lot of frustration from people getting denied.
Okay, and I'm just trying to understand, when you talk about classes, what classes?
We're talking about 45, semester hours of
Oh, the
science-based
science hours.
courses, right? And what applies and what does not apply. And so my suggestion would be to possibly have somebody from your office
Okay.
attend a CLEAS meeting, which I believe we meet once a month. Maybe, I'm sorry, I'm new to CLEAS, but it's the Committee of Local Environmental Health Supervisors. And I want to, maybe it's every other month on like the 3rd Thursday, but I would reach out to their chair and obviously work with you all to see if we could get you on an agenda to talk about that.
Okay, well, I can talk to our licensing manager, Tina, about that. And and again, I appreciate you help flesh this out, because this might be something we can talk about now. And the CEUs, what is your concern with that, please?
We had a conference that had a fair amount of CEUs for the Oregon Environmental Health Association, and the CEUs were not approved. And a fair amount of inspectors across the state are counting on those CEUs for compliance, and went to the conference specifically to gain their CEUs, and they were not approved, and therefore there's a ripple effect across the state.
And they were not approved by the
That's
office?
correct. That's my understanding.
Okay. Well, what I will do is I will speak to our quality assurance person, Callie, who handles our CEUs, and I will find out what is going on with that. And I will talk with Tina about maybe attending a CLEAS meeting. And that is certainly something that we can bring back our findings, and we can absolutely talk about this at our next meeting.
I have a question, Anne.
Yes, please.
Hi.
This is Tina.
This is Tina Russell. Could you email me a little bit more clarification? One, I'd like to know what CEU, what class that was, and the date it was held, so I can talk to Kelly about that. And then the second one, could you find out some of those classes that were denied? And you're talking about college courses, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If I could get maybe an example of some of those classes.
I think that what I would probably end up doing is reaching out to at least a few managers who are having frustrations and have them reach out to you directly rather than me speak for them.
Yes.
We have a very long tenured staff in my department and just not turnover, but other people are having large amounts of turnover and having some frustrations. And so if I can direct those managers to you all, that would be very helpful.
Yes.
And then
And
again, having
or
you
if
all,
they could give
go
me a
ahead.
name of the individual that there
Sure.
was problems, so I can actually look at the transcripts itself.
Mhm. And we should send those to you, Tina?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That will help. And like I said, they're reaching out to me, and obviously there's not much I can do. You guys are, you know, operating under state rule, but there is frustration, and again, I would like them to address that with you. So I'll reach out to those folks and give them your contact information. And then what I'll do is also reach out to the board for OEHA and have them I think there's been back and forth conversations, but what's interesting to me is that on your website, it is very clear. And I ran into this. I was in a leadership academy for a whole year and basically earned like 95. Well, it would have been equivalent of 95 CEUs for a leadership academy through the National Environmental Health Association. And what I discovered and what's very clear on your website is that those hours need to be approved prior to the event and will not be approved after. And am I correct in what I'm reading?
No, we usually don't. You don't have to have your CEUs pre-approved prior to attending that. Your continuing education has to fall within the scope of your practice.
So we don't have to turn those in for approval prior to us going to the event.
Correct.
Because I kind of feel like I read that on your website that said if it's after the event has occurred that they won't be approved. So if I'm wrong, that's great, but I'm pretty sure that's what I read.
I'll check into that because I know that all of our CEUs now are self-attesting. And as long as, unless you're audited, you have to have those agendas and the curriculum of which the course covered in your files whenever you are, if you are audited. Callie would be the one to talk on this. She is off today, but she would be the one that you would talk to. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're all self-attesting and you
Well-
don't have to be pre-approved.
Well, this is a great conversation. I know I'm looking at the rule 338-020-0030, and it does say you're going to be saying that when you renew, you're going to attest that you have what you need. Number 3
Correct.
says continuing education must be approved for participation or attendance at an approved instructional program presented, recognized, or under the auspices of any institution, agency, professional organization, or association which conducts educational meetings, workshops, symposiums, or other activities where CEU is offered. So that is still in there.
Okay.
But I mean, that's certainly something that I can talk to Callie about see, what we've been trying to do, Scott, and I know the frustration is as we've evolved as an agency, and Tina's correct, what we've been trying to do as we've grown and grown and grown as getting away from the pre-approval business, because just nursing home administrators could bury a staff member, right? So what we've been trying to do in rule is outline domains. Like as long as the education is in this or this, like, well, we kind of did it with COVID. We allowed you during COVID to count your COVID experience as continuing education.
Right.
We're trying to get out of the business of pre-approval because it is onerous for everyone involved. So I will talk to Callie. Right now that rule still exists, but there's certainly maybe there's something we can do as far as open your rules and I'm just talking about it in theory, right? I can talk to the appropriate staff about perhaps looking at domains, or, there's something we can do to get out of the pre-approval business if it's within our statutes and it's something we can do.
You, Ann.
This is Rhonda Robb. I've talked to Callie in length about CEUs, and she's told me something similar, that we do not need pre-approval. We just need to have all of our paperwork in order for our staff or whatnot.
Okay. Again, you can see how sometimes rules, we're trying to move things forward and get them aligned and remove barriers. And sometimes it takes a while to get everything moving in the same direction. But that's certainly something I can work with Callie. I mean, that's sort of an office policy. We have to operate within statutes and rules too, right? But as office policy goes, you guys are professionals, and if you're selected for audit, folks are like, do we need to send in the paperwork, please? No, please, we don't want your paperwork. Attest to having what you need, and if you're selected for audit, then you would have to show us your documentation. But I will definitely talk to Callie about maybe we can bring that rule into the now. So thank you for bringing that up, Scott, and that's certainly something we can mention. We can talk about where we are with the process in the next meeting.
Just to
So I'm
clarify,
actually, go ahead.
this is Sean Rochette. I wanted to clarify that, Scott, you're talking about the OEHA annual education conference that happened back in April 5th through the 7th.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, and I'm actually looking at the web page that's Environmental Health Registration Board, Environmental Health Specialist / continuing education, and I understand the self-attestment piece when we're renewing either by mail or online. But then you come to the bottom of the page and it says pre-approval of courses. And I want to say that where I got that information was from your FAQ. And obviously we don't have time in the meeting for me to go through this again, but I was digging into that, and I'm positive that I read that CEUs would not be approved after the event already occurred.
Okay.
That,
well, if that
and so
is,
if I'm wrong, then
Oh.
and if that's just you can get a pre-approval, but it's not required, then how do we do that?
Right. No, I mean, this is all really, really good conversation, and it's something I can work with Tina and Callie, and we can see if we can get this aligned more with the way the business is moving right now. So thank you for bringing that up, and I hope by the next meeting we'll have something that makes a little bit more sense to you.
Okay.
This
be
is
great.
Rhonda Robb. I just wanted to follow that up with Scott's correct in the continuing the CEU FAQs dated September 1st, 2022. It does state pre-approval is needed. So maybe when you and Callie talk, you could revise that document or something, or
Of course,
work towards it. But just a suggestion.
No, oh, absolutely. We want everything to align, and we want to, have everything as uniform as it can be across vast professions. So I'm happy to get with Callie and Tina and get that sorted out to the best of our ability.
Right. Thank you.
Of course. Anything else for other board business? You've given us lots to chew on. Well, if that's it, if we're all covered and we've heard from everybody, please speak up if you have anything else. Otherwise, Scott, you can gavel us out.
All right. Well, the Environmental Health Registration Board meeting is adjourned at 10:17 a.m. on September the 30th, 2022.
Fantastic. Let me get the